Oh, high heavens! That night, the Bayou River was no longer just a river, it sang. In the thick darkness, thick with the smell of mud and the fractured golden moonlight, a baby's cry rang out and then fell silent. The father screamed, while the mermaid emerged from the heart of the water, her scales golden and radiant like 1,000 sunflower petals. She didn't steal any souls, she healed. With a song that was half human, half wave, she promised, "I will return your child to you, but the justice of the water must be upheld." And from that night, an invisible pact connected the world of humans and the world of water, where lies would be skinned alive, and truth would be protected by golden light. Will that justice save the innocent, or drown even those hiding their sins? Once upon a time, in an old African-American community, where the swamps steamed with humidity year-round, and the roots of black willow trees intertwined like praying hands, there lived a man named Mark. He was a gentle carpenter, broad-shouldered, with calloused hands and dark eyes that always gleamed with quiet resolve. He lived in a small wooden house on the river's edge, where mornings were blanketed in white mist, and evenings brought fireflies dancing around the eaves like little souls keeping watch over the village. Folks cherished Mark, not just for his skill with wood, but for the ancestral kindness he carried within, the kind passed down through generations in the prayers of black women with white headscarves gathered by the water's side. When Elisa, his wife, became pregnant, the whole village rejoiced. She was gentle, her voice light as smoke, and her smile enough to make anyone feel that life, no matter how hard, was still worth living. Each morning, Mark headed to the river to fell trees, then returned early to sing to their unborn child. He often told Elisa that their baby would carry the breath of the water, since the little one had heard the waves from inside her womb. But on the morning of the birth, the sky hung gray and ashen, and the frogs in the swamp croaked long and strange, an ill omen. Folks say that day, as the rain poured down and lightning tore across the sky, Elisa's cries echoed through the village. In the small wooden room, Mark held his wife's hand, praying in desperation. Her hand grew cold bit by bit, but her smile lingered, gentle as if to comfort him still. And then, when the baby's first cry rang out, Elisa's heart fell silent. Mark cradled his child, his mouth too stunned for tears, feeling only his own breath unraveling like a snapped thread. He pressed his lips to his wife's forehead, cold as a shard of moon fallen into water, and vowed, "I will care for our child until my last breath." They named her Serena. That night, the village lit torches to send off Elisa's spirit, and the elder women chanted the old song, "Water gives birth, water takes away, water remembers the names of the righteous." Mark stood at the river's edge, babe in arms, watching the firelight dance on the black water. He felt the river's movement keenly, as if the current itself were listening to him speak. "I swear," he whispered, "I won't let her fall into the darkness." And the wind rose, rustling the willow leaves like an unseen reply. From then on, Mark's life grew quiet. He toiled endlessly, day and night tending the child. His broad shoulders, once meant for bearing logs, now bore the weight of loss. In that house, Elisa's touched things remained. The half-embroidered scarf she'd left unfinished, the cracked ceramic vase, the wooden bead bracelet she'd woven for the baby. Mark hung it above the cradle, so that when the wind slipped through the cracks, the beads would clink softly like little bells. Serena grew up on those sounds, on the warmth from her father's heart and the shadow of her mother in dreams. But time didn't soothe the loneliness. When the dry season came, the swamps cracked open, the river shrank, and Mark began to wear thin. He worked as a carpenter and cared for the child, sleeping so little that his eyes stayed shadowed. Many nights, he'd hear the wind through the thatch roof and think it was Elisa returning, but when he opened the door, there was only the scent of mud and cold air. His old friend Lucienne would stop by often, bringing dried fish and advice. "You need another woman to help. The child needs a mother's warmth." Mark stayed silent. He gazed at the river, where moonlight gleamed like a cold mirror, and murmured, "No one can replace Elisa." But deep down, he knew he was truly exhausted. One day, as the sun blazed red sinking toward the horizon, a strange woman arrived in the village. Her name was Isabel, her skin smooth and dark as oiled wood, her hair in loose curls, and her eyes holding a glint sharp as a blade. She spoke sweetly, saying she was a widow from the next village over, seeking sewing and cooking work to get through the rainy season. Mark paid her little mind at first, but Lucien, ever cautious, noticed the way she looked at Mark, a quiet, calculating gaze. Still, time and loneliness softened the heart, and just a few months later, Mark married Isabel in a simple ceremony. No drums, no songs, just handfuls of earth scattered at the threshold for blessing. At first, Isabel was gentle. She sang lullabies to Serena in a low voice, cooked bean stew, cleaned the house. Mark thought perhaps fate had pitied him, granting a new chance. But folks say, a person's true shadow only shows when the night runs deep enough. One evening, while Mark was at the workshop, Lucien passed by and heard a child's cry from the house, endless, hoarse, as if scorched by fire. He stood outside the door, listening silently, then saw Isabel open the window, her eyes cold as ice. She left the baby alone, stepped out to the porch, stared at the river and muttered, "Why does the water keep singing her name like that?" From then on, whispers started in the village. They said that whenever Mark was away, Serena cried until her voice gave out, while Isabel went to the riverbank and sat for hours like someone entranced. Mark wouldn't believe it. He wanted to believe in the good, in human hearts, in the idea that happiness could be mended like a torn shirt. But one night, in a dream, he saw Elisa standing on the river, hair dripping wet, whispering, "Don't let the water take back what it didn't want yet." He jolted awake, heart pounding, sweat soaking his shirt. In the darkness, he heard water dripping, as if someone were walking beneath the river, slow and steady, heading toward his house. The next morning, Mark went to the water's edge. The mist still hung thick, and the river lay quiet. But something was off. Beneath the willow tree where he'd once made his vow, the ground was damp, marked with what looked like small handprints in the mud, and beside them lay a golden shell, glowing softly like sunlight through dew. He bent down, picked it up. In that instant, he caught a faint sound, a warm, distant song, echoing as if from the water's heart. Water remembers, water watches, water will demand justice. And before we continue with the main story content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video, okay? And don't forget to comment below letting us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear that. Once upon a time in an old African-American community, where the swamp steamed with humidity year-round and the roots of black willow trees intertwined like praying hands, there lived a man named Mark. He was a gentle carpenter, broad-shouldered, with calloused hands and dark eyes that always gleamed with quiet resolve. He lived in a small wooden house on the river's edge, where mornings were blanketed in white mist and evenings brought fireflies dancing around the eaves like little souls keeping watch over the village. Folks cherished Mark not just for his skill with wood, but for the ancestral kindness he carried within, the kind passed down through generations in the prayers of black women with white headscarves gathered by the water's side. When Elisa, his wife, became pregnant, the whole village rejoiced. She was gentle, her voice light as smoke, and her smile enough to make anyone feel that life, no matter how hard, was still worth living. Each morning, Mark headed to the river to fell trees, then returned early to sing to their unborn child. He often told Elisa that their baby would carry the breath of the water, since the little one had heard the waves from inside her womb. But on the morning of the birth, the sky hung gray and ashen, and the frogs in the swamp croaked long and strange, an ill omen. Folks say that day, as the rain poured down and lightning tore across the sky, Elisa's cries echoed through the village. In the small wooden room, Mark held his wife's hand, praying in desperation. Her hand grew cold bit by bit, but her smile lingered, gentle as if to comfort him still. And then, when the baby's first cry rang out, Elisa's heart fell silent. Mark cradled his child, his mouth too stunned for tears, feeling only his own breath unraveling like a snapped thread. He pressed his lips to his wife's forehead, cold as a shard of moon fallen into water, and vowed, "I will care for our child until my last breath." They named her Serena. That night, the village lit torches to send off Elisa's spirit, and the elder women chanted the old song. Water gives birth, water takes away. Water remembers the names of the righteous. Mark stood at the river's edge, babe in arms, watching the firelight dance on the black water. He felt the river's movement keenly, as if the current itself were listening to him speak. "I swear," he whispered, "I won't let her fall into the darkness." And the wind rose, rustling the willow leaves like an unseen reply. From then on, Mark's life grew quiet. He toiled endlessly, day and night tending the child. His broad shoulders, once meant for bearing logs, now bore the weight of loss. In that house, Elisa's touched things remained. The half-embroidered scarf she'd left unfinished, the cracked ceramic vase, the wooden bead bracelet she'd woven for the baby. Mark hung it above the cradle, so that when the wind slipped through the cracks, the beads would clink softly like little bells. Serena grew up on those sounds, on the warmth from her father's heart and the shadow of her mother in dreams. But time didn't soothe the loneliness. When the dry season came, the swamps cracked open, the river shrank, and Mark began to wear thin. He worked as a carpenter and cared for the child, sleeping so little that his eyes stayed shadowed. Many nights, he'd hear the wind through the thatch roof and think it was Elisa returning, but when he opened the door, there was only the scent of mud and cold air. His old friend Lucien would stop by often, bringing dried fish and advice. "You need another woman to help. The child needs a mother's warmth." Mark stayed silent. He gazed at the river, where moonlight gleamed like a cold mirror, and murmured, "No one can replace Elisa." But deep down, he knew he was truly exhausted. One day, as the sun blazed red, sinking toward the horizon, a strange woman arrived in the village. Her name was Isabel, her skin smooth and dark as oiled wood, her hair in loose curls, and her eyes holding a glint sharp as a blade. She spoke sweetly, saying she was a widow from the next village over, seeking sewing and cooking work to get through the rainy season. Mark paid her little mind at first, but Lucien, ever cautious, noticed the way she looked at Mark, a quiet, calculating gaze. Still, time and loneliness softened the heart. And just a few months later, Mark married Isabel in a simple ceremony. No drums, no songs, just handfuls of earth scattered at the threshold for blessing. At first, Isabel was gentle. She sang lullabies to Serena in a low voice, cooked bean stew, cleaned the house. Mark thought perhaps fate had pitied him, granting a new chance. But folks say, a person's true shadow only shows when the night runs deep enough. One evening, while Mark was at the workshop, Lucien passed by and heard a child's cry from the house, endless, hoarse, as if scorched by fire. He stood outside the door, listening silently, then saw Isabel open the window, her eyes cold as ice. She left the baby alone, stepped out to the porch, stared at the river and muttered, "Why does the water keep singing her name like that?" From then on, whispers started in the village. They said that whenever Mark was away, Serena cried until her voice gave out, while Isabel went to the riverbank and sat for hours like someone entranced. Mark wouldn't believe it. He wanted to believe in the good, in human hearts, in the idea that happiness could be mended like a torn shirt. But one night, in a dream, he saw Elisa standing on the river, hair dripping wet, whispering, "Don't let the water take back what it didn't want yet." He jolted awake, heart pounding, sweat soaking his shirt. In the darkness, he heard water dripping, as if someone were walking beneath the river, slow and steady, heading toward his house. The next morning, Mark went to the water's edge. The mist still hung thick, and the river lay quiet, but something was off. Beneath the willow tree where he'd once made his vow, the ground was damp, marked with what looked like small handprints in the mud, and beside them lay a golden shell, glowing softly like sunlight through dew. He bent down, picked it up. In that instant, he caught a faint sound, a warm, distant song, echoing as if from the water's heart. Water remembers, water watches, water will demand justice. And before we continue with the main story content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video, okay? And don't forget to comment below letting us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear that. Mornings in the swamp carried a strange light, not the harsh blaze of sunlight from the plains, but a humid, soft glow spilling over the water like pale golden silk. Thin mist draped the mangrove branches, wrapping each limb and leaf in delicate threads. In the wooden house by the river, cook fire smoke rose, mingling with the scent of burning wood, damp earth, and fresh grass after a nighttime rain. Mark was sawing a log for new window frames, while Isabel inside the house lifted her sweet voice in an old lullaby. The song flowed even and warm, seeming peaceful. Mark smiled. He believed that peace could finally return. He glanced through the window, seeing Isabel cradling Serena, rocking her gently. It was an image that softened his heart, the woman he'd married caring for his daughter. In that moment, he believed in the good, believed that every wound could heal with kindness and time. But beyond the shimmering sunlight, something silently cracked. When Mark left for the workshop, Isabel set the child down in the cradle, ignoring the drawn-out cries filling the small room. She looked in the mirror, adjusted her hair, her lips parting in a faint smile. The eyes in the glass were no longer kind, but cold and sharp. Serena's cries irritated her, like a mosquito's whine in her ear. She turned away, opened the door, and stepped onto the porch. The air outside was cooler, the wind lifting her skirt lightly. At the water's edge, the river lay still as a sheet. The moss-green surface reflected her face, distorted, elongated, blurred. Isabel leaned down, staring at her reflection, and whispered, "Who are you to steal all his love?" No one answered, only the splash of fish below, rippling like mocking laughter. In the days that followed, she changed bit by bit. She spoke less, but her voice turned unnaturally sweet whenever Mark was near. Each time he returned, she smiled, lifted Serena, kissed her forehead lightly like a devoted mother. But the moment the door clicked shut behind him, that smile vanished, revealing a weary face and a chilling gaze. She let the baby cry until exhaustion silenced her, then sat by the window, where the light cast a sickly gray-green tint on her skin. Outside, the water flowed slow, moss-covered, and a thin mist rose, blurring the line between land and river. She felt eyes watching her from the depths. Lucien, Mark's old friend, grew uneasy. He visited often, bringing a basket of fish and cornbread, lingering to help mend the roof. Once, he saw Mark rush off to the dock, leaving Isabel with Serena. From the house came the faint wail of a child. He crept closer, peering through a crack in the door, and saw Isabel sitting with her back to the cradle, needle and thread in hand, muttering something under her breath. The light fell on her face, and Lucien recoiled. There was something in that gaze, cold as metal. He backed away, heart racing. When Mark returned, Lucien whispered, "I'm not sure that woman brings you peace." Mark laughed wearily. "Lucien, she just needs time. She's lost a husband, suffered hardship. Trust me." Lucien fell silent, but a smoldering unease lingered in his chest. From that day, the swamp grew strange. At night, the frogs, birds, and wind seemed to blend into an eerie tune. Villagers spoke of pale golden lights drifting over the river, like shimmering fish scales under moonlight. An old woman called it a sign. "The water is rising." Mark dismissed it. He figured it was just moonlight tricks, or the village's superstitious fancy. But deep down, he sensed a shift too. Each night as Serena slept, he heard the little bells clinking, the bracelet Elisa had made for her. The sound came slow, like the river's breath. Then one morning, Isabel suggested washing clothes by the river. Her voice was so gentle that Mark suspected nothing. She said the fresh air would help Serena sleep better. He agreed, believing she'd finally started loving his daughter. As the three walked along the bank, mist still lingered, the scent of algae and wet earth clinging close. The water lay calm, mirroring the overcast sky. Isabel led the way, her feet gliding over wet grass, her skirt fluttering like a slender black bird's wing. Mark carried Serena, his heart light. He told her about the willow tree that had sheltered their family, about his vow to Elisa. Isabel only smiled, but a chill flickered in her eyes. At the river's bend, she stopped. "Go pick some herbs over there," she said softly. "I'll watch Serena." Her tone was smooth. Mark felt no doubt. He handed the child over and stepped away, bending to the bushes near the edge. Grass rustled underfoot, wind whispered in his ears. He didn't know that behind him, Isabel stood utterly still, her face turned to the river, eyes vacant. The moss-green water mirrored like glass, needing only a breath of wind to ripple in small circles. In that moment, time held its breath. She looked at the child, lips pressing thin. "You've stolen it all," she thought. His love, his gaze, his very breath. A black bird perched on a branch, screeching sharply. She startled. A chill raced down her spine. But jealousy surged stronger than fear. She stepped forward, leaned down, and in a swift, ruthless motion, released the baby into the water. A tiny sound, the break of water, then silence. The river swallowed everything. No cry, no scream. Just the surface, serene to the point of horror. Mark turned back, herbs in hand. Isabel collapsed into the mud, rolling to soil her dress, screaming, "Mark! The water! The water took the baby!" He rushed forward, heart exploding. The bank was slick. His feet sank in mud, knees scraped on rocks, but he plunged on. The river flowed smooth as if nothing had happened, its surface clear, light dancing. He peered down, hoping for a small arm to surface. A cry, a sign. Nothing. Only Ellis's wooden bracelet, drifting to the far shore. He dropped to his knees, fists clenching mud. The wind howled through the swamp, carrying a faint song, elusive, warm, distant, as if from the water's heart. "Don't cry, righteous one. Water hears, water sees. All that is unjust will circle back in the flow." But Mark couldn't make it out clearly. He only knew his heart had shattered, and the river, silent, as if it had witnessed nothing. Night fell over the swamp like a cold, wet cloth draped on the world. The village slept soundly, save for the chorus of insects droning long and the musty mud scent rising from the river. Mark sat by the cook fire, embers casting on his sun-darkened face. His hands still bore mud stains from afternoon, trembling slightly when smoke stung his eyes. In the corner, Isabel sat still, eyes red-rimmed, dress soaked and mud-caked. She spoke no words, only occasional soft sobs, as if trying to make her grief feel real. Outside, the river flowed smooth, like an endless black ribbon. No one knew how much lay unsaid beneath. The whole village drowned in morning air. Torches lined the banks, searching vainly for the little one. The water stayed gentle as ever, but beneath lurked a thick silence that chilled everyone. Elders shook their heads, murmuring that the river had claimed its due. Some laid wildflowers at the edge, whispering Serena's name, as if fearing to anger the flow. Mark paced the bank, eyes unblinking. Each step sank him deeper into mud and despair. When the search halted, torches guttering out, only he and Isabel remained by the river, mute. The next day, the sky turned silver gray, wind shifting. Mark stayed inside, speaking to no one. He sat at the door, staring at the water. The house was so quiet you could hear mosquitoes hum. Everything inside felt chilled. The empty cradle, Ellis's scarf, the unfinished drawing, even the wooden bracelet. He picked it up. It still bore scratches, as if scraped on rocks. Holding it to his ear, he thought he heard something, faint, like a breath or a broken lullaby in water. He startled, but listening closer, only silence. Isabel watched him, eyes averted. She kept up her sorrowful look, but in her glance flashed something cold, like someone who'd passed through rain without getting wet. In the days after, the swamp grew heavy. Clouds wouldn't break, wind wouldn't blow. The river's surface lay flat, moonlight each night dimmed as if veiled in mist. Isabel cleaned the house, buried Serena's clothes under the backyard tree, saying it would let the child's spirit rest. Mark didn't object, just watched silently. But each night, the little bells by the cradle tinkled softly, though doors were shut tight. At first he blamed wind, but wind couldn't enter a sealed room. The sound wasn't steady, sometimes playful, like fingers toying with it, sometimes slow, like a sleeper's breath. Strangest, after each ring, the room carried a faint salt scent, briny and distant, a smell impossible from this swamp. One afternoon, Lucien visited. He brought cornmeal and dried fish, but really to look into Mark's eyes. As Mark recounted the horror, his voice grew hoarse, each word slicing his throat. Lucian listened long, then whispered, I know you won't believe it, but this river, it has memory. Ancestors said water only takes when offended. Maybe someone touched what shouldn't be touched. Mark shook his head, voice choked. No one. Just an accident. Lucian said no more, but leaving, he paused at the bank, picked up a small shell, saw a faint gold glow inside, and slipped it silently into his pocket. On the 7th night after Serena's death, the new moon rose, sliver thin as a silver sickle. The river gleamed with an odd green light, not moonlight's reflection, but seeming to emanate from the depths. Mark sat on the porch, eyes hollow from sleeplessness. Isabel inside, alone before the mirror. She stared at her face, pale skin, ashen lips, and suddenly, behind the glass, a child's shadow flitted by. She whirled. No one. The cradle bells rang again. She rose, legs shaking, approached the door. The room was pitch black, only a thin light ray from the window slit falling on the floor. And in that light, she saw clearly a small trail of water from the empty cradle snaking across the floor, vanishing under the door. Isabel backed away, hand over mouth, unable to scream. She fled outside, feet pounding wet grass, dress clinging. The river before her shimmered gold, rippling in small circles, as if someone breathed beneath. A very soft sound rose, half song, half wind. That song held no threat, no sorrow, only a profound calm that terrified. Isabel retreated, muttering prayers, her eyes blurred. Turning, she saw Mark on the porch, his gaze fixed on the river, indifferent yet heavy. Do you hear something? He asked, voice low and weary. Isabel didn't answer. She nodded faintly, then hurried inside, pulling the blanket over her head. That night, Mark didn't sleep. He sat watching the river until the new moon passed overhead, leaving a fading golden band on the water. In that moment, he thought he saw something tiny and bright in the current, a wooden bracelet shard, or just a reflection. He wasn't sure. But from deep within, something stirred, aching, vague as a warning. The river held a secret, and that secret, sooner or later, would surface. Early morning, Isabel sought the village church, lit incense for the child, face ashen white. She told the elders she'd dreamed of water calling Serena's name, of songs in the wind. The old woman stared long, then said, Water calls no one without cause. Isabel left, heart pounding wildly, but forced a smile for passers-by. Mark watched her go, his eyes no longer clear as before. He didn't know what to believe anymore, only that each gust brought that salt scent again, faint but real enough to taste on his lips. Afternoon fell, sky blazing red, migrating birds wheeled overhead, wings rustling loud. Mark sat under the black willow, where he'd once vowed. The ground beneath was wet, scents of moss and ash mingling. In his chest he heard something distant, perhaps tiny waves, perhaps a whisper. And in the sunset glow, as he leaned down, a faint golden light flashed in the mud, then vanished as if never there. He shivered slightly, lifted his gaze to the river. The water lay silent, but in that silence breathed an ancient being awaiting its moment to speak. That night, no stars. The whole bayou drowned in thick darkness, only the frail new moon filtering through branches, painting broken silver streaks on the water. Mud's tang rose with damp moss, laced with bone-chilling mist. From afar, frogs croaked, then hushed, swallowed by void. Mark sat by the riverbank, eyes dry, hands clutching the water-soaked wooden bracelet. For days, he'd eaten nothing, slept nothing, haunting this spot, where the water had stolen his only daughter. A light wind blew, carrying a muffled drum-like thrum from afar. Reeds on the bank quivered, then stilled. From the river's heart, a dim light began seeping, gold, then green, then gold again, like a vein pulsing upward from the depths. Mark lifted his head, heart slamming. He didn't know if he dreamed or waked, only that the water moved, not with wind, but with another rhythm, the rhythm of something awakening. A sound rose, not human voice, not wave crash. It blended song and breath, warm as a mother's lullaby yet laced with stone-cracking power. Mark leaped up, feet slipping in mud, blood roaring in his ears like calling a name. Serena? He whispered, his voice dissolving into mist. No reply. Only the golden light growing brighter, parting the surface into great swirling eddies. From the whirlpool's center, a form rose, slow, heavy, as if the water birthed a body. First the hair, long, black, heavy, spilling like ink in water. Then the face, deep brown, eyes blazing like fiery amber, locking onto him, deep enough to drag his soul down. And last the tail, long, curving, sheathed in dazzling golden scales, each reflecting moonlight into 1,000 radiant beams. Water around her bubbled softly, misting golden like smoke. Mark staggered back, throat tight. It was no human, no demon, but something between worlds, sacred and terrifying. The mermaid rose half from the water, droplets falling from her skin like glittering glass threads. When she spoke, the sound halted all space. You called my name with blood. Her voice didn't boom in words, but echoed in Mark's mind. He felt hundreds of whispers converging. Ancestors, rivers, the losts. Wind died. Forest hushed. Even the moon seemed drawn into her eyes. Mark crumpled, clutching earth, tears mixing with mud. Give me back my child, he said, unsure if aloud or thought. The mermaid gazed long, then touched a fingertip to the water. A deep rumble sounded, low, profound, like a drum struck in the river's core. The water around them deepened to rich gold, bubbles rising like opening eyes. You want your child returned, she said. But the river gives nothing without taking. Water holds memory. It knows the hand that cast the child. It knows the heart that wept. And it knows the soul desperate enough to trade everything. Mark raised his head. Cold sweat trickled down his back. I'm ready, he said. She leaned closer, golden eyes flashing. Ready for the blood pact. From her tail, a blaze streaked, cleaving the water in two streams. Amid the mist, a massive shell emerged, opening like an ancient beast's maw. Inside glowed crimson as blood. Mark felt an odd pull drawing him near. His hand shook, but he didn't retreat. He drew the small knife from his belt, slashed his palm. Blood welled, dripping into the water, spreading dark red rings. The instant it touched, the shell's light erupted, flooding the bank. Song thundered, shaking leaves, scattering birds. The mermaid lifted her head, wet hair plastered to shoulders, voice deepening. The father's blood has fallen. Water hears. Your child will return, but you must guard your true heart. If one day you let lies live in your home, the river will claim its debt. Mark nodded, heart wild. From fear or faith, he couldn't tell. She raised her hand, touched his forehead. Her skin was cold, but beneath burned like fire. His body shuddered, vision blurring. In that flash, he glimpsed Elisa cradling Serena by the water, smiling. Then it dissolved into sparkling drops sinking into the river. When Mark's eyes cleared, the mermaid receded, half submerged. Wait until the full moon rises over the willow's crown. Then the pact sign will appear. With that, she flicked her tail, unleashing a great wave. Golden light sprayed like shooting stars, then extinguished. The river smoothed, leaving only salt scent and a small shell at Mark's feet. Thin, pale gold, etched inside with a spiraling circle like closed eyes. Mark sank down, breath ragged. No more song, no light. Only the sense that the river's depth still watched him, silent, unmoving. Wind returned, sighing through reeds, carrying fish tang and wildflower sweetness. He stared at the shell, its gold mirroring in his eyes. His last blood drop fell on it, spreading into a tiny fish shape. The moment it touched, a faint whisper came. Justice does not sleep. When the full moon rises, truth will surface. He looked skyward. The new moon had set, leaving fading silver. On the water, a golden ring flashed, then vanished. The river seemed to seal its lips, holding the pact between man and water, blood and gold. From afar, the first storm thunder of the season rolled, slow, deep, like the ocean's heartbeat gathering toward the swamp. And now, dear viewers, pause a moment to hit subscribe before diving into the story's heart. But only if you truly connect with what I'm sharing here. And drop a comment below telling me where you're watching from and what time it is now. It's fascinating to see folks from everywhere joining us. From that night of river glow, Mark was no longer himself. He told no one of the pact sealed with the underwater being, but his eyes always held a flicker of fear mingled with vague faith. He still worked, still ate, but every river ripple, every passing breeze jolted his heart. He sensed something had changed, not just around him, but in the very home he lived in. Mornings brought thick mist, sunlight piercing tiny droplets in an eerie pale gold, exactly the glow that had risen from the depths the night before. Isabel saw it reflecting on walls, in mirrors, in wash basin water. She hated it. Each time gold flooded the house, her skin chilled, heart raced, breath caught. She tried convincing herself it was mist and sun playing tricks, but deep down, she knew otherwise. The river had begun watching her back. Nights brought the song. At first, faint hums, like wind through wood walls, but gradually, Isabel heard clearer. A familiar melody, the lullaby she'd pretended to sing for Serena, now rising from somewhere beneath the floor, soft and insistent. That voice wasn't quite sad, but cold. It brushed her skin like mist, seeping into every corner, soaking the air, blending with rooftop drips. Isabel buried under blankets, but the sound slipped through, soft as breath at her ear. Mark heard nothing, or pretended not. He only knew each night, in the silence, the golden shell, the sole thing he'd gathered after the pact, glowed faintly. He placed it on the small altar beside Ellis's photo, but its light wouldn't stay put, flaring like fire one moment, fading like breath the next. Sometimes in sleep, the shell would hum, emitting a low note like a distant song. Each time, he dreamed of his little girl standing mid-river, hair wet, eyes clear as water. She reached out, but he never touched her. Isabel began feeling unsafe. Small house items shifted without touch. Windows opened at night, though latched. One morning, she found tiny handprints on the wall dripping wet, mud and salt mingled. She wiped them, but next morning they reappeared, more, higher, as if the child grew taller each night. She feared, but dared not tell Mark. That man grew distant, his gaze forever on the river, as if conversing with a spirit she couldn't see. One evening, wind rose sudden, rainwater in the yard barrel rippling in concentric circles without rain. Isabel watched, back slick with cold sweat. In each ripple, she saw her face reflected. No, not her face, but two eyes of someone else, golden as amber, staring from the depths. She screamed, but it died in her throat. She collapsed, eyes fixed on the softly boiling water. Mark rushed out, lifted her. "What's wrong?" he asked hoarsely. Isabel shook her head, afraid to tell. But as he turned, she saw on her wrist, where he'd touched, a tiny golden scale stuck fast. She scrubbed until blood welled, but it wouldn't budge. That night, she lay sleepless. Closing her eyes brought tiny footsteps pacing the old Serena room, wood creaking as if someone climbed the bed. She opened them to darkness, but salt scent choked thick, briny on her tongue. In the following days, the haunting became fever. Isabel's skin dried, throat perpetually parched. She drank endlessly, never enough. One night, she went to the river, scooped water to drink. But the swamp brew was bitter salty, fishy, burning her throat raw. Each time, the song drew nearer, clearer. Children's laughter mingled with a woman's drawn-out drawl, counting her heartbeats slow. 1 for lies, 2 for fear, 3 for truth, 4 for the full moon's coming. She hurled the bucket, ran home mud-footed, but the door stood open. In the flickering oil lamp, Mark sat at the table, hand on the golden shell. He didn't look at her, only murmured, "Don't go to the river at night." His voice dropped strangely low, no longer his own. Isabel dared not ask. She retreated to the corner, shell light casting dancing gold spots on walls. They swirled around her like minnows. One brushed her cheek, leaving a warm sting. She flinched but couldn't look away. From that night, the house seemed alive. The shell sang, water trickled under floors though skies dry, and sometimes wind carried a child's call to someone. Isabel withered, eyes ringed dark, while Mark wandered like a sleepwalker. He began talking to empty air, repeating, "When is the full moon?" Each time, the room chilled, gold light crawling from floor to walls, then out. On the week's last night, Wind howled fiercer than ever. Isabel lay abed when she heard faint scratching beneath the floor. Steady, persistent beats. She rose barefoot, toes meeting icy wood. The scratching stopped. Leaning down, a water drop fell from the ceiling, landing salty on her forehead like a tear. Looking up, she saw words form on the beam, watery strokes curving, then drying. The child isn't sleeping yet. She backed away, lips quivering, then fled to the porch. But outside, the river glowed, gold flooding the surface. She froze. Mid-river, something small and bright rose slowly, inch by inch. No more song, only wind, but its brine stung her eyes. Isabel trembled, hand over mouth. Behind, in the house, the altar shell blazed, spilling gold across walls. Water drops began falling from the ceiling, rhythmic as a lullaby. Mark stepped onto the porch, light mirroring in his eyes. He said nothing, just stared at the river. And in that glow, Isabel saw, or thought she saw, a tiny hand reaching from the water, shimmering with golden scales in the night. Early dawn cloaked the swamp in fog so thick the trees blurred from the world. Light spilled dim and cold, not sunlight's hue but a silvery white, hazy, uninviting warmth. Everything seemed frozen in a half-waking dream. The usually quiet river stirred. Its surface heaved, exhaling misty breaths. And from that mist, a small figure began emerging, slow and silent as a black flower bud opening in icy current. Mark saw first. He wandered the bank, ragged reed basket in hand, head bowed like a somnambulist, shoes mud-caked, pant hems soaked, breath fogging white. Reaching the river bend by the old willow, a small sound rose, not bird, not breeze, but a soft, halting breath, like a new being's first gasp. He looked up. On the fog-draped reed bank sat a little girl, huddled, bare feet sunk in cold mud. Tiny, about 5, hair matted wet with algae, but skin strangely smooth and luminous under mist. Eyes wide, deep brown, clear as river washed. As Mark neared, she lifted her head, gazed long, silent, tearless, just tilting, listening to wind. In that instant, her small lips quivered, then spoke, raspy, faint, "I don't know who I am." Simple words, but they pierced Mark's heart like a blade. He froze, then knelt, draping his jacket over her shoulders. Mud, water, damp hair scents blended, laced with that briny salt he'd smelled in dreams. Her tiny hand felt ice-cold but pulsed, faint, steady, like a heartbeat echoing from river depths. "It's okay," he murmured. "You're safe now." He didn't know why. Yor became child. Only that something in her shook him, a strange familiarity. Bringing her home, Isabel stood on the porch. She spotted them from afar, and in that second, her world tilted. Air thickened, heavy, each breath tugged by invisible cord. The child, wet black hair, unnaturally deep eyes, hammered her heart, not with pity. Fear. Fear of that gaze, fear of the huddled form that felt eerily known. Mark said he'd found the girl by the river. No one knew her parents. No wounds, no clothes, just a golden shell clutched in her fist. Isabel paled. She recognized it instantly, same as the one on the altar. The thing that sang at midnight. She recoiled, lips trembling, but Mark noticed nothing. He set the girl on a chair, stoked the fire, fetched warm water to wipe her face. Hearth glow lit her skin, and for a flash, thin mist around her dissolved, revealing a soft inner luminescence, golden as light beneath flesh. When that light hit Isabel's eyes, she jerked. The image of Serena face down in water flashed, tiny hand, final breath, water sealing shut. It all crashed back, dazing her. She turned away, gripping the doorpost, steadying. But a child's laugh tinkled, light as bells. Isabel shuddered. Looking back, the girl smiled at Mark, innocent, but in her eye depths lurked something profound, rippling like river bottom. "What's your name?" Mark asked. She shook her head. He pondered, then said, "I'll call you Hope." The name hung in air like a breeze, but to Isabel, it chilled like a knife at her heart. Hope. It echoed in her mind like a curse, the river mocking, whispering endless. She pressed her lips, sweat soaking her back, then slipped quietly from the room. In the days after, the house settled into odd rhythm. Mark seemed happier. He worked the yard, taught the child net weaving, foraging, stories of Elisa. The girl spoke little, just listened and smiled, occasionally humming untutored tunes. When she hummed, air softened around her, but from below came faint water trickles. Isabel couldn't bear it. She avoided the child's gaze, but its gold seeped everywhere, in drinking cups, mirrors, even tabletops where she laid hands. One night, Mark deep asleep, Isabel rose, lit a lamp. She eyed the child's room, door ajar. Faint gold light leaked, thin as breath. Heart hammering, she approached. Door creaked open. Room empty, but mid-floor, a water stain spread. In the stain, a spiraling circle like shell patterns glowed, then faded. She collapsed, tears spilling, stammering, "It can't be. It can't." From the corner, child's laughter rang, brief, soft, but icing her spine. Isabel whipped around. The girl stood there, hair dripping, eyes blazing gold, watching her, unsmiling, unweeping. Lamp flickered, shadows dancing walls. In that instant, Isabel realized the child's breath carried river scent, and on her neck gleamed a tiny luminous streak, just like the golden scale once stuck to her own hand. She backed away, bumping the door, fled to porch. Outside, fog thick and biting, river still steaming gold. She heard Mark call behind, but didn't turn. Her mind held one image. Tiny hand sinking in water, eyes wide, shell spinning in river heart, singing unheard lyrics. She knew, though dared not admit, the child hadn't come to live with them. She'd come to reclaim stolen breath, remind her water never forgets, and justice, though slow, knows its way home. From the child's arrival, the river seemed to change breath. Each morning, mist no longer white but tinged pale gold, swirling the house roof like living silk. Villagers said the water purified, good fortune neared, but in the wooden home by the bank, Isabel knew that light brought no grace, but reminder. A reminder soft as mist, heavy as sin. She lived half dream, half wake. Days, she heard the child's laugh, clear and even as water drops in deep well. Mark bustled, eyes regaining spark, but to Isabel, each sound tightened her chest. Glancing into Little Hope's eyes, she saw no child's face reflected, but vast, watery shadow, where tiny eddies swirled into wide golden eyes. Nights, wind through house brought faint glow. Light not from oil lamps, but the altar shell. It cast slender rays, spreading walls, etching golden spirals on frames. Isabel tried cloth covering, but mornings the cloth dripped wet, salt thick as sea. She dreamed long visions, standing in cracked, dry swamp, earth splitting myriad furrows, thin water seeping each, curving unreadable script. Dreams ended in song-like chant, wordless, but rhythmic, emphatic, ancient litany from when humans unnamed water. One afternoon, sun near setting, Isabel washing by the well noticed basin water shifting hue. Not blood, not mud, but sparkling gold like metal dust sifted bottom. Terrified, she dumped it, but palm held clinging light flecks, cold pinching like needles. That night, song returned nearer than ever. No longer just from river, but walls, roof, creaking wood fibers, as if house breathed river rhythm. Mark woke midnight, found Isabel at window, eyes wide, staring out. Outside, fog-blanketed river. He whispered question, but she stared, murmuring, "Listen, the water's speaking." He strained ears, heard only wind. Then sudden, distant thrum rose long, like song, but earth deep breath. Each note stretched invisible thread, touching house things. Window quivered, lamp swayed, altar shell hummed bell soft. Mark stood frozen. Isabel turned, voice rasped, "You called them with blood. Now, water comes to collect." He gripped her shoulder. She wrenched free, dashed porch. Wind rushed in, whirling salt brine and white flower scent. The bank glowed dim, not moon, but thousands tiny lights hovering water, each a waking eye. Isabel shook violently, retreating, as songs swelled round and deep, dozens voices blending. The child appeared at threshold, hair loose, face serene. Air around her sparkled gold. Mama's scared, her voice light as mist. Isabel crumpled, eyes down. Little Hope didn't advance, just stood tilting head, listening water, then hummed along softly. Her tune joining rivers, everything held breath. Lamp died. Only gold light spread smooth as silk, sheathing floor, walls, ceiling. Isabel looked up. In the haze, she saw, or imagined, hundreds forms flickering in light, long-haired women, lower bodies melting water, hands clutching shells, mouths wordless song. They circled like smoke, not approaching, and each turn shattered gold into shard brightness, reforming wing shapes. Isabel reeled, heart drumming. She knew she witnessed what humans shouldn't. Water's justice, older than courts. Silent but unyielding. When song ceased, light dissolved. House plunged quiet. Mark sought Isabel. She knelt still, eyes staring, lips quivering, tearless. Little Hope had gone inside, sat by fire, tiny shell in hand, blowing gently. Sound escaped prayer soft. Salt, white flour, wet earth scents blended, filling house, shivering Mark. He looked, moss began creeping walls, verdant, soft as water skin. Next morning, village woke to strange water scent. River gleamed gold along a long stretch, fish schooling thick below surface. Folks called it fortune, river spirit's blessing. But passing Mark's house, they paused, for on the wooden door, someone carved a spiraling symbol, strokes wet fresh as water cut. They didn't know last night Isabel heard song final, sin blooms, that water may harvest fair. From then, she spoke no more. She sat hours by door, gazing river, eyes vacant. Gold light visited still, lurking in cups, hope's eyes, altar shell. Each appearance wind halted, birds hushed, house sank into altered breath, breath of water dwellers, golden-scaled mermaid needing no show, her voice enough to draw justice shoreward. Are you still here, my dear viewers? Pause, relax a bit, maybe sip water, then tune back for the gripping tale. Comment number 1 if you find this story intriguing. Don't forget to hit subscribe. That night, the full moon swelled fuller than ever. The swamp drowned in liquid light, gold-veined silver, illuminating every moss tendril, every mud streak on bank. River hushed dead. No wind, no frogs, just mirror-flat surface awaiting unmirrored yet. Isabel sat porch, hair cascading shoulders, eyes wide on water. Moonlight etched her gaunt face, serene strangely. Weeks wordless, scant eating, but tonight that light summoned her awake. She felt river gazing back, not judging eyes but memories. A wet, salty, cold, infinitely patient memory. Mark and Hope slept inside. Dim lamp cast pale gold on walls where shell lay still. But tonight, no humming as usual. It glowed steady, faint, like heart awaiting final beat. Isabel rose, paced slow to bank. Moon made water blinding, like land glassed over. Each step, memory returned. Gestures, breaths, lies, times turning from babe's cries years past. Memories no longer knifing, but wind, light, unavoidable. Kneeling water edge, knees in mud, salt algae flooded nose. She trembled, but held. From depths, pale gold began diffusing, faint as dawn's first breath. Then song lifted. Not loud, not fierce, but kind as lullaby. Woman's voice, far and near at once, singing wave tongue. Each note rippled surface, spreading luminous rings, touching Isabel's feet, warming gradual, warmer. She shut eyes, tears falling. First since sin's birth, she let cry. I know you fear, song said. Not words, but wind rhythm in hair. But water holds no grudge. Water only remembers. Isabel bowed head, lips quaking. Let me bear it. I was wrong. I can't hide anymore. Wind stirred, carrying white flower and wet earth perfume. Water parted. No human form, just golden scale shapes swirling, coiling Isabel's hands. Her skin met water uncold, feeling only soul warmth touch. Light flooded, enveloping her. In its heart, Isabel glimpsed Serena, or Hope, girl standing water surface, hair wind-tossed, smile moon-soft, no blame, no tears, just reaching hand. tiny palm faded, dissolved in light, trailing brightness into Isabel's heart. A melody swelled, no longer midnight's haunting lullaby, but homecoming hymn. River blazed, spanning swamp curve, beaming trees, mirroring on Mark's roof. Inside, Mark startled awake, gold pouring windows. He ran out, heart thundering. On bank, Isabel stood in glow halo, dress fluttering light, eyes tear-glazed but peaceful. He moved to call, voice caught. She turned, smiled. First true smile in years. "Forgive me," she whispered. Water heard me. Mark approached, but touch met light spreading, veiling them in fine gold mist. No thunder, no gale, just water song lingering, simple, rounded as perfect moon. River shifted hue, gold melted silver, then cleared crystal. Cool breeze sighed, salt vanished, only wet tree scent. As light withdrew, Isabel knelt bank, hands clasped chest, face moonward. She smiled faint. Small shells surfaced beside, glimmering moment, then shattered into 100 tiny light shards, ascending like fireflies. The child stepped from porch, moonlight pooling eyes. Hope unshed tears, just watched shards flight. Mark lifted her. Father-daughter stood gazing shimmering river, as if sky fallen earth. No words. They only listened. Song lingered faint. Even, carrying Mermaid's final words, "Justice lies not in judgment. It lies where the heart bows." Isabel slowly closed eyes, breath even, deep. She didn't melt water, didn't vanish, just slumped weary, burden shed. Mark neared. On her palm gleamed tiny golden scale, brightening, then dusting like sunmotes. He understood. River had forgiven. That night, water peaceful again. Moon waned westward, strewing stars. Frogs, crickets resumed, world returned old rhythm. Mark carried hope inside, heartful loss and calm. On altar, Ellis's photo glowed instant, then dimmed. Second shell remained, lightless now, but ear-pressed. He heard faint, water lapping, wind singing. Someone's whisper. I saw the light in the water. Next morning, villagers reached river, found surface mirror calm. Bank trailed tiny footprints sunward. They said from then, river ran no longer murky, and swamp crossers sometimes caught a gentle tune, strange-tongued, yet familiar, lightening souls. Beneath, where gold once flared, golden-scaled mermaid glided silent. She spoke not, just opened palm, holding tiny white petal, drifting water-free, shoreward where Mark and Hope began new dawn. First dawn after full moon came soft as breath, light tentative through willows, falling on just calm river, tinting water pearlescent. No thick fog, no salt breath. Only wet grass, fresh earth, dawn birds chattering, small sounds sturdy, like landheart reviving post-long rain. Mark porch sat, eyes riverward. Before him, cook-fire smoke curled blue, and in its wisp, Isabel's shadow lingered. Slender, softened, past's weight gone. He unclear if she lived or water followed, only knew she'd found what humans rarely do, peace in owning fault. He nodded faint, as to self. Inside, Hope slept yet, clutching shell. Light slipped door, touching cheek, lids fluttering open. She rose, hair tousled, eye gold dissolving to deep brown, earth brown. Barefoot to porch, she called soft, "Father." Mark turned, smiled. He reached, tousled hair. In that light, father-daughter wrapped mist haze, ethereal yet warm. Day drifted slow, villagers trickled by, baskets breadfish, inquiries. No Isabel questions. They eyed Mark. Hope, bowed head slight. They felt nights change too. Wild river gentled, water clear to see bottom pebbles. Village children played bank safe, fearing no strange songs or gold lights. They said water goddess rested, kind souls guided own realms. Afternoon, Mark and child bank walked. New grass sprouted, mud streaks sun-dried. Wind bore small sounds. No song, but water laugh, softly breaking stones. Hope paused, water gazed, eyes sparkling. "Father, does water have memory?" Mark halted. Simple query choked him. He eyed daughter, knelt, cupped water handful. "Water remembers all, child." but holds not to punish, to remind we not forget. For if we forget, we repeat wrongs. She smiled, bowed, touched river. Small waves spread, breath soft, sun glinting. Evening old house, mark lit oil. He shelved shell, lit incense stick. Flame danced, etching face, aged but eased. He murmured, water scent, thank you for returning light to this home. Hope sat beside, wordless. She placed hand table near shell, hummed faint, tuneless origin, perhaps blood-born or water dream remnant. Her voice thin but pure, swelled, wind blending, lamp wavering, wall etching golden fish scales. Villagers said from then, she hummed rain days. Songs softened downpours, steady not fierce, greening crops, fattening fish. Each rainy season, swamp fields verdanter, waters teeming. They called Hope water's daughter, river sent blessing. But Mark smiled silent. He knew truth wordless. Months flowed, girl grew, hair lengthening, eyes brown gold. Speech scant, but sought for counsel. Folks said she heard river voice. Once, lost village child, she closed eyes, listened, led search. They found babe willow root slept, serene. Thereafter, region believed water spirit companioned her, her song linking human to lost sacred. Late summer afternoon, Hope River went alone. Wind still, water smooth, sunset crimsoning surface. She knelt, placed childhood shell on water. It drifted, spun, pale gold glowing like that moon night. She whispered, thank you for forgiving, mother. I'll sing so water never forgets. Shell quivered, low-toned, sank bottom, waves dissolving sunset. Rising, sun horizon touched. Light breeze rose, water whisper reply. She smiled, homeward where Mark net wove, silver hair sunbright. He looked up, eyed her. That instant, father-daughter knew pain road ended. Now only live to retell this tale, lesson, lay. Years later, village elders told young ones, water song full moon night story. They voiced low, slow, scripture-like. Each telling, eyes turned reed-curved river bend, water clearer there, night reflecting strange light, gold unblinding, breath soft. They said, mermaid golden scale once rose there, justice repaid heart mercy, one soul healed. Mark then silver-haired elder, face time furrowed but eyes water kind. Speech sparse. He smiled, hearing young hum, ancient untutored tune. He dwelt small river house, eaves leaning waterway. Window beside, empty spot Isabel once held now white flower pot. Dawn mornings, it bloomed thin gold-veined petals, scent salt light. Villagers named it forgiveness flower, hope grown tall, long-haired, eyes rain-clear sky. Village bound always. She taught children song listen, wind water heed. She said, water listener wrongs no more. Her singing river dimpled, fish splashed, birds bank landed. Folks deemed her river daughter, balance keeper human water. But Hope laughed. She called self water storyteller of human heart, human hearer of water heart. One rainy season, river swelled. Village feared levee break, but pre-wind night Hope Bank went, willow branch planted, sang. Voice wind melded, rain circled untouched. Dawn next, water receded swift, not swept. Villagers bank kneeled, flower bread thanks offered. They knew heart held justice mercy tames tempests. That year, Mark died sleeping, face serene, hand shell bead clutched. Hope buried father near bank, gold glow sunset reflected. Soil just covered, breeze sighed, white flower scent swamp filled. Water surface, 100 tiny lights ascended, circling grave, sky buttering fly melded. Villagers said, golden mermaid fetched kind father's soul. Thereafter, each full moon night, folk river gathered. They floated white shells water down, releasing song chanting old, tune wordless, wave winding, but hearer's heart eased. Children dashed, chasing goldfish firefly gleams. Adults sat still, eyes shut, lost remembering. That moment, water, human, moon, memory one blended. Hope often water edge stood, hand surface touching. She felt undercurrents whisper, tale-telling generation span. She heard mother voice, Elisa's, Mermaid's own, borderless, merging single sound, water singing life. One night, full moon blazing, she glimpsed mid-river woman's shadow. Face unseen, just long hair wave drifting, gold scales moon glinting. Shadow smiled, hand waved greeting, dissolved current. She bowed, hands clasped. No fear, no surprise, only knowing pain once had lightened. Golden scale mermaid tale became bayou legend. Folks painted her church walls, rain festivals. Children learned water tune. Adults reminded, let no heart drought, waterless place forgives not. Mistake makers led riverbank, water sat to listen. Water wordless, but all understood. Many years more, far travelers' village reached. Hearing tales of gold moon night, kind father, reborn child, sacred mermaid sign dissolving sands punishment. They asked, does anyone still hear that song? Villagers smiled, no need here, we know it by heart. One misty dawn, water veiled, Hope River stood. Sky clouds drifted lazy, water heart gold reappeared, unblinding, greeting like. She bowed faint, hummed line. Through water humans pass, through humans water flows, justice lingers, mercy stays. Wind carried tune afar, forest field, other villages story unknown. But they heard, hearts warmed, perhaps tune no one's but every lost soul's, every forgiven. Afternoon fell, sun river sank, gold silken swamp wide. Water flowed ceaseless, silent, worldly memory like. And if you pass that bend full moon night, listen long, you'll hear, in wind, water, your own breath, golden mermaid's song still swelling, endless tale unchanging, water can judge, but at end, water chooses forgive. And so the story of Mark, Isabel, Hope, and the golden-scaled mermaid closes, like river post-storm. Tale born loss, mistake, sin, but ending forgiveness light. For ultimately, water punishes not only, water remembers to teach human love, bow, begin anew. Mermaid, sacred justice mercy emblem, took no one forever. She only mirrored selves in water, to errant show light path, to kind affirm goodness world remains. And if ever you stray, self-unforgivable feel, remember, every river seaways, every soul home return. Dear viewers, if you've listened to these moments, tell me where you're watching from and what time it is now. Okay? Drop comment below. I still believe in mercy's justice. And before leaving, subscribe the channel, share this tale with a friend, a loved one in America, someone needing story reminder that forgiveness is humanity's greatest strength. That golden light lingers in water, breath, each of us.